feared Korean Mafia boss took the biggest gamble of his life, hiring a black woman as his bodyguard. Every man in that room laughed. His cousin whispered it was a death wish. His lieutenants muttered that desperation had finally broken him. Even his sister questioned his sanity. But Kang Dae-ho wasn't crazy. He was hunted. 3 assassination attempts in 10 days. A $10 million bounty on his head. And someone inside his own circle feeding secrets to his enemies. He needed protection no one could see coming. Naomi Cross wasn't looking for a job. She was looking for a reason to survive. Who was this woman? Why had no one ever heard of her? And why would the most dangerous assassins in Korea underestimate her? The answer was simple. Naomi had spent 8 years as the CIA's most classified weapon. A ghost who protected ghosts. A soldier they tried to erase when she became inconvenient. 16 killers were sent to finish Kang Dae-ho that night. By sunrise, every single one of them would be broken. And they would remember her name. But how did she do it? That's the story you're about to witness. Kang Dae-ho had built his empire from nothing. Born in the gutters of Busan, son of a fisherman who worked 18-hour days just to keep rice on the table. When Dae-ho was 14, loan sharks beat his father to death over a debt that amounted to less than $3,000. That night, something inside the boy died. And something else was born. By 19, every man responsible for his father's death had disappeared. No bodies were ever found. No questions were ever answered. The whispers began. There was a young serpent rising in Busan, and he showed no mercy. By 25, Dae-ho controlled the docks. By 30, he owned the nightclubs, the construction companies, the politicians who looked the other way. By 38, the Iron Serpent Syndicate was one of the most powerful criminal organizations in South Korea. For 2 decades, Kang Dae-ho had been the hunter, the predator, the name that made grown men lower their eyes and speak in whispers. But now, at 42, the hunter had become the hunted. Started 3 weeks ago. The first attempt came as a car bomb outside his favorite restaurant. The explosion killed his driver instantly and wounded 2 bodyguards. Dae-ho survived only because he had stopped to take a phone call and was still 30 feet from the vehicle. Luck. Nothing more. The second attempt was more personal. A business dinner with associates from Japan. Fine wine, expensive food, pleasant conversation. His food taster, a man who had served him for 11 years, took 1 sip of Dae-ho's wine and collapsed within seconds. Foam poured from his mouth. His eyes rolled back. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. Poison. Someone had gotten close enough to touch his glass. The third attempt shattered any illusion of safety. A sniper's bullet pierced his bedroom window at 3 a.m., missing his head by less than 4 inches. The shot came from a building 600 meters away. A building that was supposed to be abandoned. A building his own security team had cleared just days before. 3 attempts. 10 days. Each one closer than the last. Someone wanted Kang Dae-ho dead. Someone with resources. Someone with patience. Someone with inside information. And then came the final blow. His head of security, a man named Director Yoon who had protected him for 15 years, was found dead in his office. The official cause was suicide, a single gunshot to the temple. But Dae-ho knew better. Yoon would never take his own life. He had been murdered, silenced before he could reveal what he had discovered. In his pocket was a single piece of paper with 3 words, "Trust no one." The message was clear. The enemy wasn't just outside the walls. The enemy was already inside. Within days, Dae-ho's paranoia reached fever pitch. He fired half his security team. He changed safe houses every night. He stopped eating anything that hadn't been tested 3 times. His empire, built over 20 years of blood and sweat, began to fracture under the weight of his fear. Business partners distanced themselves. Lieutenants whispered behind closed doors. The Iron Serpent was wounded, and every rival in Asia could smell the blood. Then the bounty appeared. $10 million. Posted on the dark web. Available to anyone who could deliver proof of Kang Dae-ho's death. The deadline? The night of the Eastern Summit. A gathering of Asia's 5 most powerful crime lords, scheduled in just 5 days. If Dae-ho attended, he would be walking into a room full of potential enemies. If he didn't attend, he would lose his seat at the table forever. Either way, someone was betting he wouldn't survive the week. Desperation makes men do dangerous things. It made Kang Dae-ho consider the unthinkable. Find me someone, he ordered his last trusted advisor. Someone no one expects. Someone my enemies won't see coming. I don't care where they're from. I don't care what they look like. I only care if they can keep me alive for 5 more days. His advisor hesitated. Sir, I may have found someone, but you won't like it. If you've ever been underestimated and made people regret it, type underdog in the comments. This story is for you. 6,000 miles away from the life she once knew, Naomi Cross was trying to disappear. Seoul wasn't home. Nowhere was home anymore. But Seoul was anonymous. A city of 10 million people where a black American woman could blend into the expat crowds and foreign business districts without too many questions. She had been in Korea for 3 years now. 3 years of running. 3 years of trying to forget what she had been, what they had made her. Naomi Cross had spent 8 years as a CIA Special Activities Division operative. SAD was the agency's darkest corner, the place where normal rules didn't apply and official records didn't exist. She had protected high-value assets in war zones, extracted defectors from hostile territory, eliminated threats that the government couldn't acknowledge publicly. Her codename was Spectre, a ghost who protected ghosts. She was the best at what she did, and that's exactly why they tried to kill her. 3 years ago, a mission in Eastern Europe went wrong. She was assigned to protect a Russian defector, a scientist with information that could shift the balance of global power. But the defector was bait, a trap set not by foreign enemies, but by elements within her own agency. Her entire team was slaughtered. Naomi survived only because she was too stubborn to die. She crawled through snow for 6 miles with 2 bullets in her body, crossed a frozen river, and made it to a safe house that was supposed to be compromised. When she finally reached American soil, expecting medical care and answers, she found something else entirely. A dishonorable discharge. Falsified records claiming she had gone rogue. Her identity erased, her service denied, her existence made inconvenient. They had used her, burned her, and then tried to bury her. Naomi vanished before they could finish the job. Changed her name, changed her face, moved through a dozen countries before settling in Seoul, where she took jobs that didn't ask questions about the past. Nightclub security, private protection for businessmen with secrets, underground fight clubs where rich men bet on violence. The money kept her alive, the work kept her sharp, but nothing could silence the nightmares. The faces of teammates she couldn't save, the betrayal she couldn't avenge, the identity she couldn't reclaim. She wasn't living, she was surviving, and some days she wasn't sure why she bothered. The night everything changed, Naomi was buying cigarettes at a convenience store in Itaewon. She noticed them immediately. 3 men, nervous energy, hands hidden under jackets, eyes scanning the store like predators assessing territory. The robbery happened fast. One man grabbed the elderly shopkeeper. Another aimed a pistol at the customers. The third moved toward the register, shouting demands in Korean. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Fear paralyzed the room. But not Naomi. She didn't think, didn't calculate. Her body simply responded with muscle memory forged through years of training. The first robber's wrist snapped before his brain registered she had moved. The gun clattered to the floor. Before he could scream, an elbow strike collapsed his windpipe. Not enough to kill, just enough to silence. The second robber spun toward her, finger tightening on the trigger. He was too slow. Naomi closed the distance in one stride, redirected the weapon toward the ceiling, and drove her palm into his solar plexus. He folded like paper. The third robber ran for the door. He made it exactly 4 steps before Naomi's foot swept his legs from under him. He hit the linoleum face first. She was on him instantly, knee between his shoulder blades, arm twisted behind his back at an angle that promised permanent damage if he resisted. 15 seconds. 3 armed men. 0 casualties. The shopkeeper stared at her with his mouth hanging open. A customer dropped her phone. Someone whispered a prayer. Naomi zip-tied the robbers with their own shoelaces, left cash on the counter for her cigarettes, and walked out into the night without a word. She never noticed the black sedan parked across the street. She never saw the man in the passenger seat watching her through tinted windows, recording everything on his phone. 20 minutes later, that video was playing on Kang Dae-ho's private screen. His advisor leaned forward. I told you, someone impossible. Dae-ho watched the footage 3 times. The precision, the efficiency, the complete absence of hesitation. This wasn't street fighting. This was military, elite military. Find her, he said quietly. Bring her to me. Still watching? That means you get it. Capability has no color, no gender, no nationality. Hit like if you're tired of people missing what's right in front of them. The Iron Serpent's headquarters was a fortress disguised as a modern estate. 20-foot walls lined with sensors. Armed guards patrolling manicured gardens. Bulletproof glass in every window. Cameras watching cameras. The architecture screamed power. Cold concrete, sharp angles, zero warmth. Naomi arrived at the main gate wearing combat boots, black jeans, and a leather jacket that concealed old scars and older instincts. No jewelry, no makeup, nothing that would slow her down in a fight. The guards looked at her like she was a joke. One muttered something in Korean to his partner. Something about Dae-ho finally losing his mind. Something about this being the entertainment for the evening. They laughed. Naomi understood every word. She had learned Korean in her 2nd month here. Immersion, not classrooms. She filed their faces away in her memory. If she got this job, they would learn the cost of underestimation. Inside, the hostility only intensified. A man blocked her path in the main corridor. Broad shoulders, expensive suit, a face that expected the world to move around him. Park Jae-min, Dae-ho's cousin, 2nd in command. You're the protection? He looked her up and down like she was spoiled meat. I've seen scarier things in my daughter's daycare. Naomi didn't respond, just waited. Silence was its own weapon. Jaemin's smirk faltered. He wasn't used to being ignored. After a long moment, he stepped aside and gestured down the hall. Don't get comfortable. You won't last the hour. The interview room was designed to intimidate. Dae-ho sat behind a massive desk, for armed guards flanking him like statues. His eyes were cold, calculating, the eyes of a man who had survived by trusting no one. Beside him stood a woman with perfect posture and a face that revealed nothing. Kang Soo-yeon, his sister. The rumors said she was smarter than her brother and twice as ruthless. Dae-ho studied Naomi for a full 30 seconds before speaking. You're American. Yes. Why would an American die for a Korean criminal? Naomi's voice was flat. I'm not here to die for you. I'm here to make sure you don't die. There's a difference. Dae-ho leaned forward. You're a woman. My enemies are monsters. Monsters bleed the same as men. I've made plenty of both bleed. You're black. You'll stand out everywhere in Seoul. How is that an advantage? Naomi almost smiled. Almost. Standing out means they watch me. While they're watching me, they're not looking for the knife I'm sliding toward their throat. The guards shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't going the way they expected. Dae-ho's final question cut deeper. Everyone I've trusted has failed me. My security chief is dead. My own people may be plotting against me. Why should I believe you're any different? Naomi met his gaze without blinking. You shouldn't believe anything. Belief is what got you here. Fear is what keeps you alive. I'm not asking for your trust, Mr. Kang. I'm offering your survival. 5 days. That's all you need. I can give you 5 days. And what do you want in return? Payment. After. If you're still breathing. Silence hung in the room. The guards exchanged glances. Soo-yeon's expression remained unreadable. Finally, Dae-ho nodded. You're hired. Jae-min stepped forward immediately. Cousin, this is madness. Madness is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I've hired killers and soldiers and men with 20 years of experience. All of them failed. Maybe it's time to try something no one expects. He turned back to Naomi. 5 days, Miss Cross. Prove them all wrong. Naomi nodded once. I intend to. The first strategy meeting was a disaster waiting to happen. Dae-ho's inner circle gathered in the war room, Jae-min, Soo-yeon, Director Cho who handled operations, and 3 senior lieutenants who had survived the recent purges. Every face held suspicion. Every eye watched Naomi like she was a virus that had infiltrated the body. Jamin struck first. So what's your grand plan? Smile the assassins to death. Naomi ignored him. She walked slowly around the room, examining sight lines, noting positions, cataloging vulnerabilities that no one else seemed to see. The window behind Mr. Kong, she said finally, has a direct sniper line from the adjacent building. Anyone sitting in that chair is a target. Daeho frowned. That building is empty. We own it. You own it. But who has the keys? Who cleans it? Who maintains it? Empty buildings have visitors. Especially when $10 million is on the table. The room went quiet. Naomi continued. 2 of your guards position their weapons for appearance, not function. It would take them 3 seconds to draw. Professional only needs 1. And your emergency exit? She pointed toward the reinforced door at the back. Is chained from the outside. A fire trap, not an escape route. She turned to face the table. Your current security is designed to look impressive. Mine will be designed to keep him alive. There's a difference. Jamin's face reddened with anger. Director Cho shifted uncomfortably. The lieutenants exchanged uneasy glances. Only Soo-yun remained perfectly still, watching Naomi with eyes that calculated rather than judged. After the meeting, Soo-yun cornered her in the hallway. You've made enemies in there, she said. Powerful ones. Naomi shrugged. Enemies are just people who haven't learned to fear you yet. Is that supposed to impress me? No. It's supposed to tell you something. Soo-yun stepped closer. My brother is desperate, not stupid. One mistake. One sign that you're not what you claim, and I'll bury you myself. Naomi didn't flinch. If I make a mistake, you won't have to bury me. I'll already be dead between your brother and whatever killed him. Something flickered in Soo-yun's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. Just remember, she said quietly, family protects family. You're just an employee. Naomi watched her walk away. Family betrays family too. History is full of examples. For the next 48 hours, Naomi didn't sleep. She walked every corridor of the compound, memorizing each entrance, exit, blind spot, and structural weakness. She studied the guard rotations, noted which men were diligent and which were careless. She identified 3 staff members whose behavior didn't match their roles. A gardener who watched too carefully, a cook who asked too many questions, a driver who made phone calls at odd hours. She upgraded the security systems, replaced standard window glass with ballistic-grade material, installed pressure sensors beneath key floorboards, created hidden choke points, areas that appeared vulnerable but were actually kill zones. She tested Daeho's food before every meal, swept his rooms for surveillance devices every 6 hours, positioned herself between him and every doorway, every window, every shadow that might conceal a threat. On the second night, Daeho found her reviewing security footage at 3 a.m. Do you ever sleep? He asked. Sleep is for people who don't have nightmares waiting. He sat down across from her. What nightmares? Naomi paused the footage. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, quietly, the faces of people I couldn't save, the sound of bullets finding flesh, the silence after a mission goes wrong. Daeho studied her. You're not just running from your past. You're being chased by it. Aren't we all? He had no answer to that. Real ones know. Talk is cheap, action is everything. Comment your country flag if you ride with that energy. The attack came on day 3. A routine meeting with legitimate business associates. Men in expensive suits discussing construction contracts and shipping manifests. Naomi stood against the wall, watching everything, watching everyone. She noticed it before anyone else. The micro-expressions, the subtle shifts in body language. 3 of Daeho's own guards were too tense, their hands moving incrementally toward their weapons. She was moving before the first gun cleared its holster. A letter opener from the conference table flew across the room and embedded itself in the first trader's wrist. He screamed, dropping his weapon. The second trader fired wildly as Naomi closed the distance. She slipped beneath the shot, drove her palm into his throat, and swept his legs in one fluid motion. He hit the ground hard, gasping for air that wouldn't come. The third trader tried to aim at Daeho. Naomi grabbed his arm, twisted, and felt the shoulder dislocate with a satisfying pop. She finished with an elbow strike to his temple that dropped him instantly. 8 seconds. 3 attackers. 0 fatalities. The business associates sat frozen, drinks halfway to their lips, eyes wide with shock. They had just witnessed something that belonged in movies, not boardrooms. Daeho straightened his tie calmly. Meeting adjourned. We'll reschedule for next quarter. After the executives fled, Jaemin approached the unconscious traders with his gun drawn. We should execute them. Send a message. Dead men tell no tales, Naomi replied, zip-tying their wrists. Living men tell secrets. They'll tell us who sent them. And if they refuse to talk? Naomi's eyes went cold. Everyone talks eventually. I was trained to make sure of it. For the first time, Jaemin looked at her with something other than contempt. It might have been fear. The interrogation lasted 4 hours. Naomi didn't enjoy it, but she was efficient. The traitors eventually broke, revealing fragments of a larger conspiracy. Multiple organizations working together. A coordinated attack planned for the night before the summit. And most disturbing of all, the orders came from inside the Iron Serpent. Someone close to Daeho had orchestrated everything. Someone he trusted. They're more afraid of that person than they are of you, Naomi reported. That tells us something. What does it tell us? That whoever betrayed you commands a level of fear that rivals your own. Power, resources, access. Someone very close. Maybe the closest. Daeho's face went pale. Family. Naomi nodded slowly. Most likely. The net was closing. The enemy was inside the walls. And they had only 2 days left before the storm arrived. Day 4. 1 day before the deadline, Naomi was conducting her routine security sweep of the East Wing when she noticed something wrong. A wall that should have been solid based on the building's blueprints. A room that didn't exist on any floor plan. She pressed her palm against the wall, feeling for irregularities. Found them. A hidden seam. A pressure point disguised as decorative molding. The wall slid open to reveal a room that shouldn't exist. Inside was a surveillance hub more sophisticated than anything in Daeho's official security center. Multiple monitors displayed live feeds from every corner of the compound, including angles Naomi hadn't installed. Hidden cameras in bedrooms, microphones in private offices, feeds from locations outside the compound walls. Someone had been watching everything. For months, Naomi's blood ran cold as she examined the equipment. This wasn't amateur work. The routing systems bounced signals through multiple satellites. The encryption was military-grade. The storage drives contained terabytes of recorded conversations, meetings, private moments. Detailed files filled the drawers. Psychological profiles of every member of Daeho's inner circle. Leverage points, weaknesses, secrets that could destroy careers and end lives. Communication logs with external contacts, all encrypted, all untraceable by conventional means. This wasn't just a traitor gathering information. This was a full intelligence operation. She found Daeho in his private study and brought him to see it. His face cycled through shock, rage, and finally a terrible understanding. This is government work, he said quietly, staring at the screens. CIA, NIS. Someone with resources beyond any criminal organization. Naomi nodded. Someone has been studying you for a long time, learning your patterns, mapping your vulnerabilities, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And that moment is tomorrow night. Yes. Daeho slammed his fist against the wall. Who has access to this level of technology? Who could build this without my knowledge? Naomi had her suspicions, but suspicions weren't proof. And in the next 24 hours, proof could mean the difference between survival and extinction. I need to search everyone's quarters tonight, she said. Everyone in your inner circle. No exceptions. Daeho hesitated. These were people he had known for years. Family, trusted advisors. Searching their private spaces was an accusation in itself. Do it, he said finally. Find the snake in my house. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most dangerous. If you move in silence, drop an emoji below. That night, while the compound slept, Naomi became the ghost she had been trained to be. She started with Park Jae-min's quarters. The cousin lived lavishly, too lavishly. Custom Italian suits filled his closet. Luxury watches worth more than most people earned in a decade lined his dresser. Hidden beneath his mattress, she found gambling receipts, debts to establishments connected to rival syndicates, hundreds of thousands of dollars owed to the very people who wanted Daeho dead. Motive: money, resentment, the eternal bitterness of standing in a more powerful man's shadow. Director Cho's rooms told a different story. Minimalist, Spartan, almost no personal effects. A man who either had nothing to hide or was very good at hiding everything. But in the lining of his suitcase, Naomi found a burner phone. Recently used. The call history was deleted, but the SIM card held ghosts of data that a forensic expert could resurrect. Motive: unknown. But the hidden phone screamed guilt. The three lieutenants yielded less interesting results. One was a family man with children's drawings taped to his mirror. Vulnerability through loved ones. One was clearly a hedonist whose room smelled of expensive cologne and cheaper conquests, easily manipulated through pleasure. The third was paranoid, sleeping with a gun under his pillow and 3 different locks on his door. Scared, but of what? Finally, Naomi entered Kang Soo-yeon's quarters. The sisters' rooms were elegant, controlled, reflecting the woman who inhabited them. Books lined the shelves: law, philosophy, international relations. Not light reading. This was a woman who thought deeply about justice, power, and the systems that govern both. Then Naomi found the hidden compartment behind the mirror. Inside, university transcripts showing Soo-yeon had nearly completed a law degree at Seoul National University before dropping out. A photograph of a younger Soo-yeon in graduation robes, arm in arm with a man in a government official's uniform, and an encrypted phone with a messaging app Naomi recognized. One used by intelligence agencies worldwide. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Naomi was photographing the evidence when she heard the floor creak behind her. Find what you were looking for? Soo-yeon stood in the doorway, face unreadable. Naomi didn't reach for a weapon, didn't tense, simply turned to face her. The man in the photo. Who is he? Someone from another life. NIS. Soo-yeon's composure flickered for just a moment. Surprise. Then it was gone, replaced by something harder. You're more clever than I expected, and you're more connected than your brother knows. Silence stretched between them. 2 women who understood power and deception in ways most people never would. Finally, Soo-yeon spoke. Be very careful, Miss Cross. Some doors don't close once they're opened. Some truths destroy more than they reveal. I'm not here for truth. I'm here to keep your brother alive. Then perhaps we want the same thing. Just through different methods. Soo-yeon stepped aside, clearing the doorway. An invitation to leave. Or a trap. Naomi walked past her, every sense alert for an attack that never came. Tomorrow night, Soo-yeon said softly as Naomi reached the hallway. When everything falls apart, remember this moment. Remember that I let you go. Day 5, the final day. Daeho gathered his entire household in the main hall, staff, guards, family, lieutenants. Nearly 50 people who had access to the compound. Any one of them could be a traitor. Any one of them could be innocent. He stood before them like a general addressing troops before a final battle. Someone in this room wants me dead, he announced, his voice carrying to every corner. I don't know who, but I know the attack is coming tonight. Nervous whispers rippled through the crowd. Anyone who wishes to leave may do so now. No punishment. No retaliation. I will provide enough money to start over somewhere else. I ask only that you decide now, because once night falls, anyone attempting to leave will be considered hostile. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then an elderly housekeeper, a woman who had served the Kang family for 30 years, stepped forward. I stay, she said simply, bowing her head. One by one, others joined her. The head chef, 2 gardeners, a young maid who couldn't have been older than 20. About half the security team. Others hesitated, looked at each other, looked at the door. Then they made their choices. By the time it was over, roughly 40% of the household had taken the money and left. Those who remained stood taller, their loyalty now a choice rather than an obligation. Dae-ho turned to his inner circle. Jae-min looked relieved, then quickly masked it with his usual arrogance. Director Cho kept glancing at his pocket, where his burner phone was hidden. Soo-yeon remained perfectly composed, as always. "Tonight we survive," Dae-ho said. "Tomorrow we rebuild. And those who betrayed us will learn that the Iron Serpent's bite is still fatal." That evening, Naomi made her final preparations. The compound had been transformed into a tactical nightmare: pressure plates, trip wires, electronic countermeasures, hidden weapons caches. Every advantage she could manufacture from 2 decades of training. She found Dae-ho on the rooftop garden, staring at the rising moon. "Are you ready?" he asked without turning around. "I'm always ready. The question is whether your people are." "They're scared." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Overconfidence gets you killed." Dae-ho finally turned to face her. "What happens to you after tonight, if we survive?" Naomi considered the question. She hadn't thought about after in years. Tomorrow had always seemed like an abstract concept, not a guarantee. "I don't plan that far ahead. Maybe you should start." She met his eyes. "Maybe. But first I need to make sure there is an after. For both of us." The sun set, the moon rose, and somewhere in the darkness, 16 killers began their approach. At 11 p.m., Naomi gathered the inner circle in Dae-ho's fortified office. Reinforced walls, bulletproof glass, a single entrance with a door that could withstand small explosives. "No one leaves this room until I return," she announced. "No matter what you hear outside, gunshots, screams, explosions, that door stays locked." Jae-min sneered. "So we just sit here while you play hero? You sit here while I do my job. Unless you'd prefer to join me out there." He didn't respond. "The code to unlock the door is Spectre. If anyone comes to that door without speaking that word, they're hostile. Act accordingly." She looked at each of them. Jae-min, sweating despite the cool air. Director Cho, unnaturally calm. Soo-yeon, watching Naomi with an expression that might have been respect. The 3 lieutenants, gripping their weapons like lifelines. "Stay alive," she said. "I'll be back before sunrise." She stepped through the door, heard it lock behind her, and disappeared into the shadows. The hunt had begun. The motion sensors triggered at 11:47 p.m. for figures scaling the east wall, exactly where Naomi had predicted they would. They were good, professional, using handholds that minimized noise and thermal signatures that had been reduced by specialized gear. They weren't good enough. The first 3 hit the electrified mesh hidden beneath the ivy. 50,000 volts surged through their bodies, non-lethal but completely incapacitating. They dropped silently, muscles seizing, unable to even scream. The 4th was smarter. He spotted his colleagues falling and adjusted his route, avoiding the trap. He landed in the garden thinking he was safe. Naomi was waiting. He saw her shadow for half a second before her fist connected with his solar plexus. The air left his lungs in a rush. A follow-up strike to his temple dropped him beside his twitching colleagues. For down, 12 to go. The next team breached from the north, moving with military precision. 5 operators using thermal imaging, suppressed weapons, and coordinated hand signals. These weren't street criminals. These were trained killers. Naomi watched them from the shadows, analyzing their patterns. They moved like a unit that had trained together for years. Their formation protected each other's blind spots. Their communication was seamless, but they made one critical error. They assumed they were the only predators in the dark. She took the rear man first. A sleeper hold from behind, applied with enough pressure to drop him in 8 seconds. His teammates didn't notice until it was too late. The 4th man turned to check on his colleague and found only empty space where a body should have been. Before he could raise the alarm, Naomi's knife pressed against his throat. Flat side, not edge. A warning. "Sleep," she whispered, and the nerve strike dropped him silently. The remaining 3 finally realized something was wrong. They formed a defensive circle, weapons raised, scanning the darkness. Naomi threw a stone to their left. When they turned, she attacked from the right. The first went down to a knee strike that shattered his stance and a follow-up elbow that cracked his jaw. The second managed to fire one wild shot before she redirected his weapon and used his own momentum to slam him into the ground. The third tried to run. He made it exactly 6 steps before she caught him. 9 down, 7 to go. This wave was different. 2 snipers on adjacent rooftops. 2 spotters on the ground coordinating their fire. Naomi had mapped the sniper positions days ago. She knew their sight lines better than they did. She moved through the blind spots she had memorized, circling behind the first spotter. The takedown was silent, a rear chokehold that cut blood flow to the brain. He was unconscious in 10 seconds. The second spotter noticed his partner's absence, started to radio the snipers. Naomi's thrown blade caught his radio, destroying it in his hand. Before he could react, she closed the distance and ended his participation with a precision strike to the vagus nerve. The snipers were more challenging. High ground, clear sight lines, trained to spot threats, but they were looking down and Naomi came from above. She had scaled the adjacent building while they were focused on the compound. The first sniper never saw her coming, just felt the impact that separated him from consciousness. The second sniper spun, rifle raised, finger on trigger. Naomi knocked the barrel aside and drove her elbow into his throat. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to ensure he wouldn't be getting up for several hours. 13 down, 3 to go. They thought she was the prey. Plot twist. Subscribe if you love watching arrogance get humbled. The last 3 were different. Naomi knew it the moment she saw them move. Their tactics were familiar. Their hand signals were American. Their equipment was CIA issue. These weren't hired killers. These were SAD operatives. Her former colleagues. The agency had sent its best to clean up loose ends. Naomi watched them from the shadows, heart pounding for the first time tonight. These 3 knew every technique she knew. They had trained at the same facilities, learned from the same instructors. Fighting them would mean fighting herself. But she had one advantage: 3 years of fighting to survive outside the system. 3 years of learning tricks that no training program taught. 3 years of rage looking for a target. She engaged the first operative in the East Corridor. He was good, fast, precise, anticipating her movements. But she had evolved beyond what she'd been trained to be. She feinted left, watched him commit to the counter, and struck where no textbook said to strike. He went down hard, confused by techniques he'd never seen. The second operative found her in the courtyard. They fought in near silence, a brutal dance of blocks and strikes that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so deadly. He landed a blow to her ribs. She tasted blood. But pain was just information, and she had learned to process information faster than most people could feel it. She caught his arm on the next strike, hyperextended his elbow, and drove her knee into his chest. He crumpled. The third operative waited in the garden. When Naomi found him, he had removed his mask. Marcus Webb, her former handler, the man who had burned her. Naomi, he almost smiled. I knew you'd survive. You always were my best work. Your work. She circled slowly, looking for an opening. You tried to kill me. I tried to retire an asset that had become a liability. Nothing personal. It felt personal when you left my team to die. Webb shrugged. Collateral damage. The mission required. Naomi attacked before he could finish. Not with technique. Not with precision. With 3 years of rage finally finding its target. Webb was good. Maybe the best she'd ever faced. He blocked her strikes, countered her advances, exploited her emotional state. But emotion wasn't just weakness. It was fuel. She took hits that should have slowed her down and kept coming. She absorbed punishment that would have dropped anyone else and kept fighting. And when Webb finally made a mistake, a single moment of overconfidence, she made him pay for every nightmare she'd had since Eastern Europe. The final strike dropped him to the ground, conscious but broken. 16 down, Naomi breathed, standing over his body. Mission complete. She returned to the office as dawn painted the sky pink. The door opened to chaos. Jae-min had his gun pointed at Soo-yun. Director Cho lay unconscious on the floor. The lieutenants pressed themselves against the walls, unsure whose side to take. She's the traitor, Jae-min screamed. I found communications on Cho's phone. She's been feeding information to the government for years. Suyun stood perfectly calm despite the weapon aimed at her face. Put the gun down, cousin. You sold out your own brother. I was protecting him. For the first time, Suyun's composure cracked. Everything I did was to protect him. Daeho stepped between them, face unreadable. Explain. Suyun took a breath. I was recruited by NIS 12 years ago. They wanted information on your operations. I agreed because I saw what you were becoming, the violence, the enemies, the inevitable end. I thought I could guide you toward legitimate business before it was too late. You spied on me for over a decade. I protected you. The Americans wanted you dead years ago. I convinced my handlers that rehabilitation was possible, that you could be useful alive. And tonight, Naomi interrupted. Who sent the assassins? Suyun pointed at the unconscious Director Cho. He was the American asset, selling your secrets for money and a new identity. When you hired Ms. Cross, it triggered alerts in systems that monitor former SAD operatives. The CIA decided to eliminate both of you as potential threats. She looked at her brother with tears she refused to let fall. I tried to warn you without exposing myself. I let your new bodyguard search my quarters, hoping she would understand that I wasn't the enemy. Daeho stared at his sister. 12 years of deception. 12 years of double lives. Everything he thought he knew was a lie, but also 12 years of protection. 12 years of a sister putting herself between him and forces he never even knew existed. You could have destroyed me 100 times, he said quietly. Why didn't you? Because you're my brother. Because family protects family. Even when family doesn't know it needs protecting. By sunrise, the compound was quiet. 16 assassins lay in secured rooms, awaiting interrogation. Director Cho was in custody, facing questions he wouldn't enjoy answering. The evidence of CIA involvement would become leverage, an international incident that would force the shadows back into darkness. Naomi found Daeho on the rooftop garden, watching the sun rise over Seoul. He held 2 glasses and a bottle of something expensive. Celebrating? She asked. Surviving, he poured. There's a difference. She accepted the glass, drank. For once, didn't feel the need to watch for threats. What happens now? She asked. Now I rebuild. Differently this time. My sister has negotiated terms with her handlers. My legitimate businesses continue. My other operations transform or end. In exchange, no prosecution for past sins. A complicated peace. And you trust this arrangement? I trust that my sister could have destroyed me 100 times and chose not to. That has to count for something. He looked at her. What about you? What happens to Naomi Cross? She considered the question. For